This happened in 2019. I was 34 and leading a group of geography students on a research trip to an old mining town in the Appalachians. I was excited. We set up camp near the old processing plant. The air felt thick with history. Crumbling buildings surrounded us. Rusty machinery lay forgotten. The trees were tall and twisted, casting long shadows as the sun dipped below the horizon. I heard the wind whispering through the leaves. It sent a chill down my spine, but I brushed it off. It was just part of the atmosphere, right? Once night fell, we gathered around the campfire. The flames danced, creating flickering shapes on the ground. I told stories about the town. My students listened with wide eyes. I felt a mix of excitement and unease. Something about the place felt eerie, like it was not quite empty. The next day, we explored the town. I led them to a storage shed. That's where I found the map. It was old and frayed. The markings were hard to read, but I could make out the outlines of the town and things that shouldn't have been there. My heart raced as I studied it closer. I heard noises outside, a rustle in the bushes. I peered out, but nothing was there. My students exchanged nervous glances. One of them, Sarah, said, "Did you hear that?" I nodded, feeling a knot form in my stomach. The excitement shifted to confusion. The map felt wrong. As the days passed, things got weirder. I saw shadows flitting between the trees. Once, I heard whispers in the wind. I felt like I was being watched. My students were on edge, too. They jumped at every sound. One night, Chris seemed to vanish. We were sitting by the fire, and then he just stood up and walked into the trees. I called for him, but he didn't answer. We searched for him for hours. It felt like he just disappeared. I was scared. I kept thinking about the map and what it meant. I could see the unease growing among my students. They were not just nervous. They were afraid. Then, everything escalated. One night, I heard the old machinery start rumbling, sounding like it hadn't been used in decades. I shot up, heart pounding. I grabbed my flashlight and ran to the processing plant. The sounds grew louder. I turned to my group, but they weren't behind me. I looked into the dark mist. I yelled for them, but only silence answered. I heard footsteps behind me. My breath caught in my throat. I turned, and one of my students stood in the fog. But it wasn't Chris. She looked lost. Her eyes were wide, and she whispered, "Help me." I wanted to run to her, but then she stepped back and disappeared into the mist. I felt panic rise. I looked around for help, but I was alone in the dark. I stumbled backward, heart racing. I flicked the flashlight beam around, searching for any sign of my group. The mist was thick. It twisted around the trees like a living thing, closing in on me. My thoughts raced. Where were they? I felt the weight of isolation pressing down. "Chris!" I shouted, my voice cracking. "Sarah! Anyone!" An eerie silence answered. Too quiet. It felt wrong. I took a step forward, feeling the cold air gnaw at my skin. The map flashed in my mind. I had to think. Suddenly, a low moan echoed from somewhere in the distance. The sound sent a chill down my spine. It was no ordinary noise. It was almost human. I moved cautiously toward the source, fighting the urge to run. I had to find my students. With each step, the ground felt uneven, as if shifting beneath me. My flashlight flickered, casting ghostly shadows. I reached a clearing and froze. In front of me stood the old machinery. It was still, but I could swear I saw the outline of something moving amongst the rusted gears. The moan broke into a low whisper. "Help me. Please." It was Chris. The voice was soft and desperate. Without thinking, I rushed toward the sound. "Chris, where are you?" I called, the panic rising again. I scanned the area, but there was only the machinery and the twisted silhouettes of trees. I felt drawn to the shadows, but fear held me back. "Help me!" The whisper echoed again. It was coming from inside the machinery. I approached it slowly, the metal looking eerie in the fog. I reached out, hesitating. What if Chris was trapped inside? What if... Then just like that, there was a sudden clanging sound, a sharp noise that broke through the fog. I jumped back, the adrenaline surging through me. It came from the old processing plant. My heart raced as I turned toward the building. I took a deep breath and decided I had to go in. I had to know. I walked toward the entrance, every instinct screaming at me to turn back. But I couldn't. As I stepped inside, the air felt colder. The beam from my flashlight bounced off the walls, illuminating remnants of machinery and scattered debris. It smelled of rust and decay, like time had forgotten this place. I felt my heart in my throat. "Chris, are you in here?" I called again, my voice barely a whisper. Then I saw it. In the corner of the room, something glinted in the light. It was a piece of metal that looked familiar. I knelt to get a closer look. My breath caught as I realized it was part of Chris's backpack. That's when I heard the whisper again, louder this time. "Help me!" Panic gripped me. I stood up, looking around frantically. The shadows seemed to move closer, coiling like smoke. I felt a presence in the room, something watching me. Then everything went dark. The flashlight flickered and died. My heart raced as I stumbled, lost in the pitch black. I was not alone. The whispers grew louder, surrounding me. I could feel them closing in, and I knew I had to escape. I fumbled with the flashlight, shaking it as I pressed the button again, but the darkness swallowed me whole. The whispers swarmed around me, a cacophony of voices blending into an urgent plea. My heart pounded loudly in my ears. I couldn't stand still. I had to move. I stumbled toward the entrance, arms outstretched, trying to gauge my surroundings. The air felt heavy, thick with tension. Then, I felt something brush against my leg. Panic shot through me, and I kicked out instinctively. But there was nothing there, just the stony floor. "Chris!" I yelled again, voice cracking, hoping he could hear me wherever he was. The whispers turned into a low growl, vibrating in the air. I turned back, hesitation creeping in. Would I find Chris, or was there something worse lurking in the shadows? Suddenly, a faint glow flickered in the distance, catching my eye. I squinted against the dark. It looked like a lantern, bright against the gloom. Impossible, but welcome. I moved toward it, heart racing with newfound hope. As I reached it, I realized it was nothing more than an old gas lamp, abandoned and cracked. But beside it, there was more debris, and that's when I spotted what looked like a shoe. I knelt down, trembling as I picked it up. It was a child's sneaker, faded and scuffed. My throat tightened. This wasn't Chris's. I couldn't shake the feeling of being preyed upon by unseen eyes. Every shadow felt like it was stretching toward me, hungry and cold. I stood up, feeling desperate. "Chris!" I shouted once more, and this time there was no response. The silence felt heavier, like a weight lowering into my chest. Then something caught my attention at the far edge of the room. A faint outline of movement. I felt a surge of adrenaline. It was shifting, almost imperceptibly, but it was there. "Is someone there?" I called, though I feared the answer. The figure wavered, drawing closer, and I held my breath. As it entered the flickering light, I saw it was a human silhouette, hunched and trembling. My heart jumped as I took a step back. "Chris," I whispered, breath heavy with hope and fear. But as it stepped into the light, I felt my stomach drop. It wasn't Chris. I couldn't see a face, only ragged clothes and disheveled hair hanging like tendrils of shadow. The figure opened its mouth, but no words came out, only a guttural rasp, as if it were choking on sound. Without thinking, I turned to run. The gas lamp flickered violently, threatening to go out again. But something grabbed my arm, a cold grip that sent shockwaves through my body. I screamed, wrenched my arm away, and bolted toward the door. The whispers roared back, drowning out my thoughts as I stumbled outside. I didn't stop to look back. I just needed to put distance between me and whatever that was. But the mist had thickened, more oppressive now. I could barely see the outline of the processing plant behind me. I was alone, cut off from everyone. The shadows twisted, and an unsettling feeling settled in my gut. Then I heard it again, just above the rustling leaves. "Help me." This time it wasn't from inside the plant. It was right behind me. I spun around, breath hitching in my throat. The voice echoed in my mind, chilling me to the bone. I couldn't see anyone, but the urgency in the tone sent my heart racing. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling slightly. I took a cautious step back, straining my eyes to pierce through the thick mist. "Help me!" The voice came again, so close this time. I felt a cold rush on the back of my neck. It was like ice threading through my veins. I fought the instinct to flee and stood my ground, searching for the source. "Chris?" I tried, desperation coloring my words. "Is that you?" I scanned the area, hope wavering with every passing second. The mist shifted around me, swirling like it had a life of its own. Then I saw it, a small figure about 10 feet away, half-formed in the haze. It was crouched low, its back to me. I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe it really was Chris. "Chris!" I shouted again, my heart pounding in my throat. For a moment I decided to take a step forward, desperate to close the distance. But the figure turned slightly, and my stomach twisted. This wasn't the familiar shape of my brother. The shadowed form loomed larger, contours undefined, like something grotesque emerging from a nightmare. It opened its mouth, and the sound that came out was a sickly blend of a wail and a laugh, echoing through the trees. My body reacted before my mind could catch up. I turned and ran. The mist clung to my skin, slowing me down, pulling me back like a ghostly hand. I sprinted blindly, gasping for breath, the whispers back in full force, swirling around me, calling, beckoning. There had to be a way out. I had to focus. The road, it was to the left. I needed to get to the road. Each step felt heavy, as if the earth itself was trying to keep me here. The voices grew louder, an insistent chorus that muddled my thoughts. It felt like the very ground beneath my feet was shifting. I finally broke through the trees, stumbling onto the gravel road. Relief surged through me until I noticed a flickering light ahead. "Oh no," I muttered, fear clawing at my throat. It was the same gas lamp from before, appearing like a cruel trick in the dark. Then I noticed something else, a figure standing beside it. A shadow. I pressed my back against a nearby tree, my breath hitching again. This couldn't be happening. A part of me wanted to call out, to see if it was someone real, but the other part knew better. As I watched, the figure leaned closer to the lamp, revealing a face that turned my blood cold. It was a reflection of the figure I'd seen in the abandoned plant. Hollow eyes and a twisted smile that seemed too wide for its face. Then the voice came again. "Help me." I felt a cold sweat break out across my skin. It was coming closer from the shadows. My heart raced as I realized this wasn't an ordinary plea for help. It was a lure, and I had a terrible feeling about what it meant. Just as I turned to run again, something gripped my ankle, pulling me down to the dirt. I gasped, my pulse roaring in my ears. I fought against it, clawing at the ground, but whatever had a hold on me was powerful. That's when I saw it. Not just shadows, but faces emerging from the darkness, all looking at me with hollow eyes. Desperation rose within me. I couldn't let them keep me here. I gathered every ounce of strength I had left and dragged myself forward, toward the blinking light of the lamp, knowing I had to break free before it was too late. I forced myself to pull ahead, pulling against whatever was holding onto my ankle. Each flicker of light from the gas lamp seemed to fuel my panic. I had to move. I could hear the whispers again, sharper now, as if the shadows themselves were taunting me. "Help me," came the voice again, resonating deep in my mind. It was louder, more insistent, as if it had gained strength from my fear. I couldn't look back. I glanced down, searching for whatever was grabbing me, but all I saw was a mass of darkness, a whirl of fog and shadows. With one final heave, I broke free and lunged toward the light. My fists connected with the cool metal of the lamppost. I stumbled, clutching it like a lifeline. The gas lamp flickered and threatened to go out, its weak glow barely pushing back the encroaching mist. The shadows shifted around me, swirling, constantly moving. I took a deep breath and spun around, forcing my eyes to adjust. There had to be a way to escape. "Chris!" I shouted again, desperation bubbling inside my chest. If he was out there, he needed to hear me. There was no response, just the eerie stillness of the night, punctuated by those haunting whispers. Suddenly, the gas lamp flared brighter, illuminating the area around me. My heart sank as I noticed more figures emerging from the mist. They were rising slowly, not just shadowy faces but outlines of people. I could see their arms raised, their mouths open wide as if trying to scream, but no sound came forth. I backed away from the lamp, the light becoming a beacon rather than refuge. The voices grew louder, a cacophony of desperate cries that clawed at my sanity. "We need help," one of them pleaded, but I couldn't tell if it belonged to a man or a woman. Another voice, deeper and more mocking, countered, "You can't save them." Panic took hold. I had to do something. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block out the overwhelming sense of doom. When I opened them again, I noticed something on the road. A figure stumbling forward in the mist. My heart raced. Could it be Chris? "Chris!" I yelled, my voice cracking. This time the figure looked up, illuminated by the lamp. My heart sank further. It wasn't Chris. It was someone else entirely, their face a mask of despair. "Please!" they cried, reaching out. "You need to run!" Before I could process their warning, the shadows surged forward, filling the space between us. They were whispering now, a dark stream of noise that pulled at my consciousness. The people trapped in the mist were losing their forms, dissolving into the shadows, merging with the very darkness that surrounded me. With time slipping away, I turned back to the road, ready to run, but then everything went dark. The lamp flickered ominously, and suddenly there was no light, only a suffocating blackness. Fear seized me. The whispers transformed into frantic shouts. My name echoed through the void. I clutched my head, trying to ground myself. Struggling to remember where I was, I dipped my hand into my pocket, hoping to find the small flashlight I had. My fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. I clicked it on, and the beam pierced the darkness. What I saw in the light sent a jolt of terror through my body. A wall of swirling mist encroached on me, and behind it, I swear I saw the faces of those lost in the shadows, their mouths forming one word: stay. With a surge of adrenaline, I started to run, deeper into the unknown. I had to escape before the darkness consumed me entirely. But what lay ahead? I sprinted into the blackness, my breath coming in sharp gasps. The beam of my flashlight sliced through the mist, illuminating fleeting shadows that danced just out of reach. Panic surged within me, urging my feet to move faster. I had no idea where I was going, but the pressing weight of the darkness behind me drove me forward. "Chris!" I shouted again, the name echoing in the void. If he was out there, I needed to find him. I had to keep him safe. But the whispers continued to swirl around me, drowning out rational thoughts. "Help us!" they cried, blending with the frenzied rhythm of my heart. Suddenly, my foot struck something hard, and I stumbled. I hit the ground, the flashlight skidding away from me, its light flickering as it rolled against a heavy object. I scrambled after it, my hands searching the ground until they closed around the cool metal of the flashlight. I turned it on, bracing myself for whatever new horror awaited. As the light flickered back to life, I was met with something I hadn't anticipated. A small, unmarked door loomed just ahead, set into the side of what looked like an old stone building. The door was ajar, a faint glow spilling from within. I stood there for a moment, torn. The shadows still twisted outside, whispering and clawing at the air as if they desired entry. "You'll be safe inside," a voice whispered, softer this time, almost soothing. I hesitated, glancing back at the swirling darkness, then at the door. The glow beckoned me like a promise. I dashed toward it, swinging the door open wider. The moment I stepped inside, a sense of relief washed over me, as if I had crossed an invisible threshold. But the air felt different in here, heavy with something that tingled against my skin. I raised my flashlight again. The room was dimly lit, filled with shelves lined with dusty books and strange artifacts I couldn't recognize. "Chris," I called, my voice echoing off the stone walls. No reply. A sinking feeling pressed down on me. I needed to find him. Would he even come looking for me? Anger and fear bubbled inside, making my voice sharper. "Chris, where are you?" That's when I saw it. A flicker of movement in the shadows at the far side of the room. My heart raced. I stepped closer, the beams of my flashlight dancing along the edges of unfamiliar shapes. As I neared, I recognized one of those shapes. A broken mirror, the glass shattered but still glinting in the light. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder again, all around me. "You found it," they murmured. I felt the temperature drop, a chill creeping down my spine. Something was wrong. I took a step back, the flashlight flickering ominously, and I turned to leave. That's when I heard it, a low, rumbling growl coming from the shadows near the mirror. My pulse quickened, and I stopped dead. The air felt static, thick, as the presence behind me drew closer. I was not alone. Before I could react, a figure lunged from the darkness. The flashlight flew from my hands, extinguishing as I fell backward, the last flicker of light dying with a sickening finality. I scrambled to get to my feet, my heart racing. The darkness felt oppressive, closing in on me like a vice. I searched desperately for the flashlight, but I couldn't see anything. The only sounds were my rapid breaths and the distant growl that still rumbled in the shadows. "Chris!" I shouted again, my voice trembling. Maybe he had found his way in here. I fought down a rising wave of dread. My mind raced as I tried to recall the layout of the room, the artifacts lining the shelves. I needed a light. Just then, I heard rustling to my left. I turned instinctively, squinting into the blackness. The whispers returned, louder now, swirling around me in a cacophony that seemed to pull at my very soul. "Help us!" they cried again, mixed with something else, a deeper sound that seemed to laugh at my fear. I turned back toward where I thought the door was. My hands brushed against the wall, the rough stones gritty under my fingertips. I could feel the chill deepen, almost as if the air itself was warning me to stay away. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted it. There, partially hidden by shadows, was the flashlight. I lunged for it, fingers grasping the metal and flipping it on. The beam shot through the gloom, illuminating the far side of the room. My breath hitched in my throat. The figure was there, tall and shadowy, its features obscured. I couldn't tell if it was human or something else entirely. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Instead, I stood frozen, the beam of my flashlight shaking as I held it up. "Stay back," I shouted, though my voice wavered. The figure didn't advance, but seemed to study me, tilting its head as if curious. Where was Chris? Had he already encountered this thing? "What do you want?" I asked, trying to sound braver than I felt. No answer came, just those continuing whispers now vibrating in my bones. The shadows shifted closer, almost curling around my ankles. This had to be a nightmare. Then, unexpectedly, the figure stepped into the light. I gasped. It looked just like Chris, but twisted, distorted in a way that made my heart race with panic. "Help us," it rasped, the words tumbling from its mouth sounding like a plea. But there was something wrong in its eyes, something otherworldly that sent shivers down my spine. I stumbled back, my mind racing. This couldn't be right. I glanced toward the door, weighing my escape against the urge to help. if this really was Chris. But the now familiar growl began to rise again, like a threat rolling in waves. The air hummed with intensity. And then I saw it. A glimmer above the figure, a strange object hanging on the wall behind it. It pulsated with a soft blue light, beckoning me with an inexplicable force. I had to know what it was, even if it meant confronting whatever this creature was. The shadows swirled tighter, and I knew I couldn't hesitate much longer, so I made my choice. I would reach for that light. I lunged forward, my heart pounding as I reached for the blue light. The whispers escalated, filling my ears, drowning out any thoughts of retreat. I could feel the creature's gaze piercing into me, and I fought the urge to look back. It felt like a trap, each step pulling me deeper into the unknown. As I got closer, the light shaped itself into a small pendant, hanging just out of reach. It radiated warmth despite the icy grip of the room. I grabbed the edge of the shelf, straining to pull myself up. The growl was louder now, rolling through the air like thunder. Something in my mind clicked. Chris was drawn to artifacts like this. Had he discovered something similar? Was that what brought him here? Questions swirled, but there was no time to unravel them. I stretched higher, feeling just the tips of my fingers brush against the pendant. Suddenly, the figure snapped forward, a blur of shadows and shape. "Stop!" it screeched, a guttural sound that echoed off the walls. My hand jerked back, and I stumbled, nearly losing my balance. In that moment of hesitation, the whispers shifted. "He's not here. Save us instead." The voice sounded familiar, almost like something Chris might have said. A sickening realization washed over me. This wasn't just a twisted version of him. This was something much worse. The growl turned into a series of deep, rumbling laughs, reverberating through me, a warning of the danger I was in. Fury and desperation surged together, igniting a fire within me. I couldn't let whatever this was win. I needed to fire back somehow. Collecting my breath, I griped the flashlight tightly and pointed it steadily at the figure. "Get away from me!" I shouted, my voice firm against the cacophony. It hesitated, confusion apparent in the distorted features. That moment felt like a standoff. A fragile silence settled around us. I took a step forward, overcoming every instinct that screamed for me to flee. "You're not Chris! You're just using him!" The figure shuddered, and I saw a flicker of awareness flash in its eyes. Maybe there was something left of him trapped inside. "Help us!" It rasped again, but this time there was an edge of anguish in its voice, tinged with threat. I grasped the pendant fully now, the warmth of it wrapping around me like a shield. I turned it over, scanning for any marking, any clue that might explain what was happening, or how to escape. That's when I noticed a symbol etched into the surface, glowing more intensely as I held it. Suddenly, the room vibrated, and darkness thickened like a storm. The walls shook, sending loose stones tumbling to the ground. An ear-piercing howl erupted from the creature, rising steadily, drowning out everything else. I knew I had to get out, but the door felt miles away. My chance was dwindling, and I was either standing in the dark or stepping into something far more terrifying. I could feel the room shifting around me, and I realized I had to make a choice. If I wanted to survive, I needed to confront whatever was here, whatever had taken Chris. With the light in one hand and fear in my chest, I rushed toward the creature, ready to face whatever came next. I charged at the shadow, the pendant grasped tightly in my palm. As I got closer, the creature twisted into something darker, more menacing. Shadows danced across its form, and its eyes glowed with a mix of rage and hunger. I fought the urge to break and run. I couldn't let fear control me now. "Stay back!" I shouted again, though my voice trembled. The temperature plunged further, pricking at my skin. The whispers rose around me, creating a chorus of despair that clawed at my sanity. "What do you want?" I pressed, hoping to gain some control over this nightmare. "Your light," it growled, each word like jagged glass. It holds the power to open the door. Let me in. The shadows writhed around its body, almost hypnotic. That was the trick. It was trying to seduce me with its words. No, you're trying to trick me. I realized that this was a game, a cruel game. If it wanted the light, perhaps there was something more to the pendant than I understood. I pointed the flashlight directly at it, letting the beam shoot straight into its eyes. The creature recoiled, hissing. Then everything shifted again. The walls around me resonated with energy, pulsing with the same warmth I felt from the pendant. In that moment, I could almost see the past. Images flickered through my mind like an old film reel. Chris stood in front of me, wide-eyed, holding an ancient tome. I blinked hard. Chris, what did you find? The figure jolted in response, its expression flickering between anger and confusion. Chris is gone. You must choose. I could hear the desperation underneath its threat, the struggle clashing within it. Choose what? I demanded. What do you need from me? The creature stilled, its shadowy form seeming to draw back. The pendant, it rasped. It is tied to my world. You must free me. A chill shot down my spine. I couldn't trust this thing, not for a second. But what was this connection? What did the pendant really do? Before I could gather my thoughts, the air exploded with a deafening crack that drowned out the whispers. I stumbled forward, and in that chaotic moment, the pendant slipped from my grip and landed on the cold floor. A shockwave shot through the room. The walls shimmered, revealing scenes. Solitary figures floating in darkness, trapped spirits and agonized faces. And then I realized they were all asking for help. No! I gasped, feeling my heart race. They were all tied to this creature. I had to find a way to separate them, to save whoever remained within that tortured form. The creature lunged, but instinct kicked in. Without thinking, I dove for the pendant, wrapping my fingers around it just before the darkness swallowed me. The light pulsed through my hand, filling the room with a brilliant glow that pushed back against the shadows. In that moment, everything changed. I could see. I could understand. And suddenly what I had to do became painfully clear. But as I stood there, clutching the pendant, I sensed another presence creeping in from the shadows. I turned quickly, and to my horror, I realized it wasn't just the creature anymore. Someone else was with it, something far more sinister. Panic surged through me, and I knew the nightmare was just beginning. I stumbled backward as the unmistakable shape materialized from the dark, a silhouette cloaked in shadows, mold and decay wrapping around it like a shroud. My breath shattered in the cold air. No, no, I hissed, taking a step back. The air weighed heavily with dread, and I swallowed hard, trying to quell the rising panic. The figure stepped closer, its hollow eyes locked onto mine. But I also felt a familiar presence, an echo threaded with something that felt like Chris. A reflection of him now twisted in the dark, a painful reminder of what had been lost. Help us, the shadow hissed, more pleading than threatening, an echo of a voice I thought I knew. No, I shouted, unwilling to believe its words. The whispers swirled around me, becoming a deafening roar, all those voices merging into a twisted plea. Help us, they clamored, tugging at the edges of my sanity. I could feel their desperation washing over me, mixing with my own fear. As the shadows encroached, I tightened my grip on the pendant. Its glow flickered, pulsing with warmth, a heartbeat against the encroaching cold of the shadows. The creature lunged again, but this time, instead of recoiling, I lunged forward, shining the light directly into its eyes. Stay back, I screamed, pouring everything I had into that command. The glow from the pendant intensified, illuminating the room as if the very darkness was being driven away by the light. With it came a sudden clarity. The moment I touched the light, memories flooded through, visions of those trapped within the shadows, their anguished faces crying out for salvation. And then I understood. If I want to save Chris, I have to confront the darkness inside, I muttered to myself, my pulse racing. It wasn't just about driving the creature away. It was about facing the truth of my connection to this place, to Chris, to everything that had happened. "Whatever you are, I won't let you take me," I shouted, emboldened by the knowledge that the light could push back against the tide of shadows. The growl resonated again, combined with a chorus of voices that sang with a mixture of misery and hope. "Help us!" "No!" I yelled again, channeling my energy, my rage into the pendant. I raised it high, aimed it toward the looming shadow before me. The light exploded in a radiant burst of energy. In that moment I felt it, a sharp pull, something shifting and unraveling in the space around me. The shadows writhed as if struck by an unseen force, a cascade of darkness rushing back, dematerializing as the light enveloped everything. Suddenly, the whispers turned into a groan, echoing like a thunderclap, and the air rushed out of me as the figure of the creature trembled. The doppelganger of Chris faltered, its features shifting, horror dawning upon its face. "No!" it chimed, voice blending into a cacophony. "You can't leave without—" I blinked, the figures fading in and out, reaching out desperately for something, anything. But beneath the storm of shadows, I focused on the pendant, willing it to break the chains binding these souls. And as the last echoes of their voices tangled with my own thoughts, I felt a wash of warmth, a connection. I held the pendant firmly, and with a steady breath, I reached deep within myself, calling out into the void. "Chris, I'm here. I'm coming for you." In an instant, I felt a surge, the light in my hand flaring brighter than ever. The barriers separating the shadows broke apart under a cascade of energy, cracking through the darkness like a chamber of light bursting into existence. But as the shadows fell back and the familiar warmth embraced me, the sharp realization hit, the unsettling sense that the darkness wasn't entirely gone. I blinked, panting, as the shadows receded, but one truth remained. Chris's voice was gone. The echoes faded, but the weight of unanswered questions hung in the air. I had escaped, but I was acutely aware that I hadn't found him. All those faces, were they grateful? Vengeful? I still felt like they were watching, whispering behind me. I turned around, half expecting to see a flicker of something in the lingering dark, but it was only me and the faint glow of the pendant. With a heavy heart, I stumbled toward the door, my body trembling, and stepped into the night air. The stars hung unblinkingly above, but even then, a chill skittered down my spine. I couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness still lingered somewhere, either within the lost souls or perhaps even within myself. As I walked away from the echoes of what had transpired, I couldn't help but think of the old mining town. Its whispers would always be there, lingering just beyond reach, reminding me of dark corners in my mind I couldn't fully understand. "Chris," I whispered weakly, a vow lingering in the air. I'd find him. Someday.